Hi, everyone. Welcome today to our talk at Google. My name is Jennifer Wang, and I'm super excited you're all joining us today to learn more about the amazing animated film Over the Moon. It premiered on Netflix last October and has earned widespread recognition, including a Golden Globe nomination. We'll discuss how it was to work on the film, its inspirations, and then bring up some questions from the audience. So please be sure to get them into our chat box on the side. With that, I'll go ahead and dive into a quick synopsis of the film and then introduce our wonderful guests in detail. Fueled with determination and a passion for science, a bright young girl builds a rocket ship to the moon to prove the existence of a legendary moon goddess. There, she ends up on an unexpected quest and discovers a whimsical land of fantastical creatures. Directed by animation legend Glen Keane and produced by Gennie and Peilin Chou, Over the Moon is an exhilarating musical adventure about moving forward, embracing the unexpected, and the power of imagination. The film stars Cathy Ang, here with us today, as well as many other familiar names: Philippa Sue, Robert Chu, Ken Jeong, John Cho, Ruthie Ann Miles, Margaret Cho, Kimiko Glenn, Art Butler, Conrad Ricamora, and Sandra Oh. And I'm honored that today we get to virtually welcome Cathy, Glen, Palin, and Gennie to Google. First up, I'll introduce Glen. Glen is a 8-year veteran of Walt Disney Feature Animation. He trained under Walt Disney's 9 Old Men, which led him to create many beloved Disney characters such as The Little Mermaid, Aladdin, The Beast, Tarzan, and Rapunzel. In 2012, Keane departed from Disney to begin Glen Keane Productions as a way to further his artistic explorations in animation, design, and film. He has since gone on to collaborate with Google, the Paris Ballet, and Kobe Bryant. His most recent project is the Academy Award-winning animated film Dear Basketball, which he animated and directed in collaboration with legends Kobe Bryant and John Williams, and of course, Over the Moon. Next up, we'll have Cathy. Cathy Ang is a Chinese-Filipina actress and singer. She began musical theater in college and has always dreamed of working in animation, which led her to play Fei Fei in Over the Moon. Cathy was most recently seen in Maybe Happy Ending as Claire at Alliance Theater. She's also a member of Michael Arden's new socially distanced immersive theater company, The Forest of Arden. Cathy has also worked in various theater, television, film, and voiceover productions as an actress, such as Rami, Iris, Before the Flood, Cleanup Hitter, Age of Sail, K-pop, The Undesirables, Riot Antigone, and We Are the Tigers. Next up, we have one of the producers, Pailin Chao. She is an animation film producer at Netflix Animation. Her most notable producing credits include Over the Moon, Abominable, and Kung Fu Panda 3. Palin's 20-plus year career in content creation also encompasses numerous creative leadership roles in television and theater. Prior to joining Netflix, she was the chief creative officer of Pearl Studio, where she oversaw the creative direction, including the development and production of all films and projects, as well as the creative oversight of all marketing, PR, and consumer products efforts. In addition to her work in animated features, Palin started her career in features at the Walt Disney Studios, where she was a creative executive at Walt Disney Feature Animation and Touchstone Pictures. In those roles, she developed and oversaw dozens of feature film projects such as Mulan and Romy and Michelle's High School Reunion. In 2019, Palin was recognized as one of the top 100 most influential and impactful Asians and Pacific Islanders on the Gold House E100 list. And last but not least, we have Gennie. Gennie Rim is an Emmy Award-winning producer whose career in animation spans 20 years. She has worked at Pixar and Disney on various films such as Cars, Ratatouille, The Incredibles, and Up. After leaving Disney, she produced several independent and commercial projects, including the Academy Award-winning animated short Dear Basketball with Glen Keane and the late Kobe Bryant. Gennie has most recently executive produced the animated preschool series Trash Truck for Netflix and the feature animated musical adventure Over the Moon, alongside director Glen. Thank you all for joining us today. We've been super excited to welcome you to to Google, excuse me. What's clear from all of your bios and personal stories is obviously a huge passion for storytelling. And, as we know, stories are often told and retold or reshaped over time. And as we've learned, the moon goddess in Over the Moon refers to Chang'e from the classic Chinese folktale. Obviously, I won't recount the whole tale given time, as well as the many versions that exist. But I was curious if you were all familiar with the folktale before working on the film, or whether it was something you came into knowing better when working on the film.
I had no idea who Chang'e was and couldn't pronounce Chang'e, but now, Peilin, am I getting it right? I think I
perfect. Perfect.
This incredible, wonderful movie was presented to Gennie and I as a script, and Chang'e was such a vital part of it. And I mean, everything was new to me. Even the idea of there being a rabbit on the moon. I mean, I always heard that there was a man on the moon, which I could never see, but now I really clearly see the rabbit on the moon. Chang'e now just as real to me as well.
I was born in Taipei and moved to US when I was 5 and grew up in an immigrant Chinese family. So I definitely grew up with the tale, the legend. And, you know, every year my family would gather on our front lawn and eat mooncakes and gaze up on the moon. And every year I swore I could see that rabbit up there. So maybe we're looking at the same rabbit, Glenn.
I think so.
But you know, when I went to school, nobody else knew of the tale. And so it was a really special thing to be able to bring this to life in this film and, you know, kind of share the story with the world.
Absolutely. Yeah. Any thoughts from anyone else on the legend?
I was like a good little kid who was put in Chinese school as and so I did know about her, but I've since grown much closer to Chang'e. I mean, it's kind of like Peilin said. It's also, she's such a new version. You know, we get to see in our movie what happens to her after the tale ends, kind of. And so for me, it was like, you know, really a new introduction to her.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I learned it through the journey of this film, but I was very familiar with because my family's Korean and we grew up with you know, the Rabbit in the Moon and very well versed in that, and having heard different versions of you know, folk tales of on the moon. And also my sister-in-law is Japanese and they have their own version of a moon goddess as well. So I was just vaguely aware of this. And then when I learned about Chang'e and just how big of really a deity she is to this whole culture, it was like, wow, somebody is bigger than really Santa Claus. And it was just so such an honor to be able to tell her story and then to do it with the voice of Philippa Sue. I was like, this is a blessing.
Yeah. Of course, absolutely. I think, you know, just seeing the way for those who haven't watched it, we will not spoil the film, but it was an amazing take on the folktale and, you know, particularly what happens after. I think a lot of adaptations nowadays are very kind of curious, right? Like what happens to the fairy tale after the book has said, you know, the end. And I really, truly love the message of hope and love and family that was in this film. I think, Gennie, you had told Variety magazine that the film was a love letter to the screenwriter's daughter and her husband. Can you tell us a little bit, or anyone else on the call as well, please tell us a little bit about that backstory and how the film and, you know, plot line came to be?
Sure, and I opened this up to Palin, who really started the journey with Audrey. Audrey Wells was our writer, and I believe she came on very early and fell in love with this idea. When me and Glenn came to read her first draft, it was really her words that just completely overwhelmed me in the feeling of like, this movie needs to be made, this message needs to be told. Not knowing what Audrey, why she wrote it. I didn't know anything at that point. I just fell in love with these characters that she wrote and this journey. And that was more than enough. And then to come and find that she wrote this as a love letter to her daughter. And maybe Peilin, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. I mean, when she turned in the script, she told me it was the most important thing she had ever written. And this was a woman with an amazing career prior to this film. So that really, really hit me. And I didn't know why at the time, though I did know that she had remarried and she had a daughter. So I thought perhaps it was the journey of her daughter accepting a new family. And over time, we came to learn that Audrey was terminally ill, and she knew that she likely wouldn't live to see the film completed. But she wanted to leave this message as a love letter for her daughter, and the journey of the film, and our main character being about opening your heart to love and new people, and being able to move forward. She wanted to give her daughter permission to have that, and to live a full life, and to know that even though she couldn't be with her daughter, that the love that they shared would last forever. And so that was really, a guiding light for us in making this film, wanting to realize that message, and deliver that love letter to her daughter.
For sure. I would love to hear any thoughts from Glenn or Cathy. I'm definitely getting goosebumps as I, recently rewatched the film. So,
when I first read the script, it wasn't a musical, but it felt like it needed to be a musical. Audrey had put such deep emotion and really dealing with something very sophisticated and dealing with the loss of a loved one. And it felt like music would be able to deliver that kind of weight without it being heavy, with it coming in the back door and touching you through melody. And it was something that when I brought it up to Peilin and Audrey, they both just like jumped out of their skin, like, yes, it needs to be a musical. I was feeling like, well, was this a test or something? Because yeah, and it was really a wonderful journey to go back with her to New York, and Peilin introduced us to a whole variety of songwriters. And the wonderful thing about Audrey was her childlike belief in this story. At one point, and I think it was the last conversation I had with her, and I was talking about the similarities of Wizard of Oz and Over the Moon. And I said, so when Fei-Fei's journey, it's kind of like a dream that, you come back and with the growth that you have to go through to face the problems, so it's like that dream. And she said, no, it's not. I said, oh, what? You don't think it's a dream? No, it really happens. And she had this fire in her eyes. And I said, well, okay, well, what about like Wizard of Oz, when Dorothy goes to Oz and comes back? I mean, that's obviously a dream. No, it isn't. She kind of leaned in with this fire in her eyes and said, Glenn, you have to believe this story really happens. And underneath that is the importance of the message for her daughter. I mean, to lean into believing in fantasy and animation is so important from that creator's standpoint. And so she and I agreed that we would make sure that we never leaned one way or the other. Like, was it a dream, or did it really happen? Did she really go to the moon, and is Chang'e really there? We walked this razor's edge all the way through the film and gave clues either side. So, you can believe either one.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to, get that out for the audience, because I've definitely read so much into the backstory of the film right after I watched it, and I found so many of these anecdotes super, super touching. I think, let me see. I would love to, kind of just go into, of course, the visuals of the film. It's quite a marvel, and I run out of words to describe it. I love the, traditional Chinese river town setting and seeing all the details, architectural and otherwise, right? Just the details on the people. It's another kind of testament to, what we can do now with computer generated or computer assisted animation. But a quick question for Glenn. I know that the beginning sequence was decided to become hand-drawn, and I'm curious whether that was a decision you made off the bat or it kind of came later that you wanted to integrate that portion of your traditional background.
That was instantaneous. As soon as I was reading it, I put a circle around it and a star. I'm going to animate this. I mean, it was, and it was more than just my selfish desire to animate that moment, but it was also to describe Chang'e in the most reverential way possible. Something that really reflected the grace and the flow and the beauty. And I felt like I could control that with my drawing, because we were going to take Chang'e and turn her upside down, take something that's really revered in their culture and turn her into kind of a Lady Gaga, Katy Perry nuclear version of that. And then we were going to have to turn her back again and hopefully deliver her even better and richer and stronger. But that was kind of laying the groundwork for that in that animation.
Thank you so much. That sequence was beautifully rendered, and it certainly, I think that decision paid off artistically. I think, also going into the music that was tied in, right? You mentioned the, Lady Gaga-fied version of Chang'e that kind of anchors the story and is a key part of the plot line. I sometimes take for granted, honestly, that animated films have a musical element. I think, we've been spoiled by this rich tradition. But I love, the variety of musical styles represented, from like the, Lady Gaga diva pop ballad to, the Little Brothers bit of rap and hip hop interlude with Chang'e. I would love to hear about, how the music creation for the film was, envisioned, how it was carried out. And then especially for Cathy, how fun was it to sing with and perform with such an amazing, amazing cast?
I'm going to ask Palin to kick us off here because when she talks about the songwriters, which we all very, very much so grateful that we found the songwriters that we did. It was this amazing combination. Palin had such a hand in really bringing two unlikely pairings together and making doing that.
Well, it was really Glenn, but I think that once we knew we wanted it to be a musical, it was such an exciting opportunity to figure out, who would write these songs and be kind of the musical voice of this film. Many amazing, kind of musical theater, musical focus songwriters happen to reside in New York City. So the team came to New York for a week, and we met with a number of different people that had all different backgrounds and had created, all different amazing kinds of work. And at the end of the week, kind of the two that rose to the top of the list were Chris Curtis and Margie Duffield. They were a pre-existing writing team. And then also Helen Park, who was a separate songwriter. And we were debating the merits of each and tried to make a decision. And Glenn said, well, can't we just hire them both and have them write songs together? See, that was my reaction. And I was like, no, you can't do that. Nobody does that. But Glenn felt really passionately. He really heard something, I think, in each of them that he felt would really contribute to the film. And so I said, okay, let's try it. And I reached out to them separately and said, so Glenn has this amazing idea that maybe you'd want to write with this person you've never heard of before. I think that they were a little, wary at first, but thankfully open to giving it a shot. And so we brought them together, and it kind of was magic. It really came together. And I remember, Glenn, do you want to talk about the first time kind of we were all together in a room in New York and what that was like?
Yeah, well, it was, I felt like I really hope this works because I'm going to look like an idiot if it doesn't. And, you know, when there's two people that are really tight as a team, and then you take this other person, Helen, and put her in there and hope she's going to fit. And this was the moment where we were all sitting down. Cathy was there and the piano is there, and it's all just really tight. We're all in Palin's office, and I was watching Helen kind of moving around the piano, trying to find, like a bird, looking for where the branch she could sit on was. And Chris was playing. Chris is like a volcano of energy and ideas. It's like trying to drink out of a higher fire hydrant. Just and here's Helen trying to find her way in. And at a certain point, there was a little riff on the piano that Chris did, and it didn't feel right to me. And it specifically felt like one of the reasons I felt like we needed Helen. And so I said, no, and I tried to describe what I wanted, and he tried it again. And he said, like this. I said, no. And Helen kind of leans in and says, well, like this. And she played this little riff. And I said, yeah, like that. And Chris said, oh, yeah, okay, I got that. And he interpreted it. And it still sounded like him there. And I said, no. Play it again, Helen. And so she did that. And this time Chris slowed down and incorporated that, and everything got better. And it just continued to work that way. It was like a snowball. And to watch the integration of them, I mean, they are a team that will, for the rest of their lives, love one another, hopefully work with each other. I mean, it's really, really was fantastic. And I think the fact that Cathy was there, able to translate anything that was happening, whether it was lyrics or the music, it was just so wonderful. It felt like we were looking at Fei herself. I had my iPhone about, I don't know, 6 inches from Cathy's face. I'm so sorry, Cathy, because you must have been nervous, but I'm filming you thinking, this is Fei.
Oh.
Their expressions, and that we used all of that for animating, but it was a great moment, Cathy, when you proved that this was really going to work as you were singing it.
I mean, I that day is so special in my heart because there's as an actor, it's very, very special to be in the room while people are still creating the work that the stories that you're going to tell. And I was so lucky that they brought me on so early in the process, because I could watch those songwriters collaborate. I could watch them throwing out their ideas and seeing, it's great as an actor because you get to actually hear so many different perspectives about who your character is and what they want and what thoughts might be running through their head. So for me, it's a really enriching experience. And I was just so glad to be there. And yes, I was nervous, but it was a really big compliment that Glenn and everyone was filming me already, and just trying to help guide me, because kind of like what you said, I was in a room full of these amazing, wonderful artists that I sometimes put on pedestals, and it's nerve-wracking, but this team was so generous and affirming. And again, it's just, it's a story that is so meaningful to all of us. And so getting into that room every day and working with these amazing artists, it's just, you get to learn so much is the biggest takeaway. You get to learn every single day that you're on the job, even if it's because I'm watching Philippa Sue go create 1,000 different emotions in a span of 30 seconds as Chang'e. I felt like I just learned so much about storytelling, and I got to play a lot, which was just it's the best experience. You can, in animation especially, you as an actor, you get to play really big levels because it's usually in some fantastical world or So that was great. I don't know. It's just been a wonderful experience as an actor.
Amazing. I think it clearly translates into the film. Again, biased because I've watched it multiple times, but for those who haven't yet, I'm sure you will feel the magic very soon on Netflix. I wanted to ask about, any details or, in the film visually or in the writing or music that, you were all excited for people to see. But selfishly, I would love to dig into how the costume design collaboration with Guo Pei came about. I am a huge fashion fan, and I confess I wasn't familiar with her until, she dressed Rihanna in that incredible yellow gown for the Met Gala a few years ago. I would love to hear about, whether that was always planned for her to be on board or if that kind of came later in the evolution of the film, and how that kind of worked with the animation for you, Glenn.
Well, I will immediately hand it to Peilin, who just had this sixth sense. You just kind of follow her through the woods and you discover amazing things along the way. So Peilin, why don't you jump in?
Sure. So, I think that when it came to costuming Tanga, we all knew that we wanted, that we had to do something really special, that was worthy of a goddess. And at the same time, of course, we wanted it to be culturally authentic and rooted in Chinese culture, but modern and contemporary, fitting of the character of a diva. And
Super
so
easy.
So when you thought of all those different elements, I just really feel like, well, it has to be Guo Pei. Like she seemed like the only person that could do it, honestly. And we, as you noted, she's been a very, very renowned designer for decades. And so, the question was like, well, is she even going to talk to us? Or like, how could we get her to work on this film? And, I would say connecting with her was one of dozens and dozens of serendipitous things that happened throughout the making of this film. This film just really kind of felt like it was like touched in that way, and it would just draw what it needed. And we came to discover that Guo Pei, in her youth, had wanted to be an animator, but had never done an animated film. So it was this amazing moment. And so, of course, I immediately reached out to her and said, Glen Keane is our director. You love animation. You have to do this movie. And of course, she immediately agreed to meet with Glen. And, she's based in Beijing, China. And, Glen is not. And we were trying to figure out, like, how were we going to find a way for them to connect? And our production partners on this film was Sony Imageworks, which is in Vancouver. And we learned, like, literally the next week, there was, like, a huge Guo Pei fashion show opening there in Vancouver in a museum across the street from Sony. So it was like,
wow.
Okay, once again, serendipity strikes. So, it was amazing. She was going to be there anyway. So of course we arranged for Glen and Guo Pei to get together. And Glen, do you want to talk about that first meeting?
Yeah, well, to me, fashion design, there's a secret part of me that's always would love to have been a fashion designer, drawing costumes. And so I was really, really impressed, nervous to meet her. And we sat down, and neither one of us spoke each other's languages. But her husband was there and he was translating. And so Guo Pei and I were doing drawings. And as you're doing drawings of costumes, Guo Pei is talking. I mean, she talks with her hands. And she's describing fabric that she's looking for, certain kinds of fabric, like silk. And she searches everywhere for the best silk. And I told her, look, in animation, we can have super silk. I mean, we can have all kinds of dynamics happen to it. And she was just getting more and more excited. And as she gets more excited, the drawings had to be bigger. So we were putting 2 sketch pads together. And as we're in the middle of talking, her husband gets up And I think he was hungry because he just left. And he never really came back. And we had like another hour just talking each other's languages, but really the language was drawing and watercolor. And I will never forget the movement of her hands became like, this is how we are going to animate it. And so as we are actually animating the cloth of the fabric designs that she did in like the Chamber of Exquisite Sadness, I just kept drawing over top of the animation, which was really copying the patterns that I remembered from Guo Pei's hands. And that was just one of the costumes, which was this ethereal beauty. But Guo Pei had designed this royal robe, which was unbelievable. And at the beginning, I think it really scared our team of designers and the cloth people up at Sony. By the end of the film, when they had really found the joy of seeing this massive, beautiful costume move around, they were fighting over who would get the last shots because everybody wanted a Guo Pei design in their work reel.
Right.
But I remember her saying that this beautiful red gown wasn't a costume. It was Chang'e's wearing her love for Houyi. And every element in that design was a symbol of these two birds, the male and a female bird swirling around on the front side or the back side where you see an image of Houyi shooting an arrow, at the sun, which is part of the legend, but it's on her back, so she can't see him, just like she longs to see Houyi again. I mean, every little detail was precious to her and to us in replicating it.
Thank you so much for that story. Wow. I'm just nerding out at so many levels now, and I'll have to find that detail in the film again. For what it's worth, just that interaction between you and Guo Pei, drawing and communicating through that. That sounds like a movie or a short film I'd watch in itself. I will kind of open it up a little more widely after my selfish question. I would love to hear about any favorite Easter eggs for everyone here that you're excited for people to see in the film. I love the authentic family interactions. Throughout the whole film, I kind of just kept saying this and pointing at the screen. And I think the person I was watching was like, easy, but it was so exciting. So I'd love to hear any favorite anecdotes around any favorite Easter eggs or references in general.
Gennie?
Oh, well, there's so many, and I don't want to spoil any of them. So I'll give you one that's kind of not so revealing, but we went on this amazing research trip at the start of this, and we had our team there, our head of story, and our production designer Glen, Palin, and we just went on this incredible just journey through China, and also really this particular city, Wuzhen, which is where we went. We went to a few water towns, but that was one that I just felt like I was like, I could stay here forever. It was like every turn was like a beautiful landscape picture, or everything from the history and all of that you were just absorbing by being there. And one of the places that actually on our research trip we went to was a school. And I really loved this actually part of it was because you got to see kids just be kids, and we went there, we got to sit in some of their classes, and just how much excitement they had. One, because I think Glen was there, and they were like, oh my gosh, we love all of his films, but
they thought I was Walt Disney. They put on a big play which kind of covered Snow White and everything. It was really, I was overwhelmed.
Oh.
Yeah. And there was this one moment, I think at the end, where they all ran up and gave Glen a hug, and he was like, I always like, he has these amazing grandchildren, and he always loves like just piling on all the grandchildren, and just that feeling of just like, oh, these kids are so amazing. They were just so just their energy was so wonderful, and knowing that we were writing, we were making this film about Fei Fei, who has this incredible determination and intelligence and passion. It was just that we were like absorbing all of their energy to kind of come back to when we were making the film, to like infuse that. So I'm going to the Easter egg. I have a point. In her class, we made everything was just like authentically like scoured, and the actual thing, the quiz that her teacher is talking about in that is and actually a very famous poem, and so we had to like learn about the poem, which now I can't really fully remember, but it was something about a very famous poem. And
isn't it that though we are a thousand
No,
apart,
it's different.
that was the stamp. Yeah, the stamp poem. Yeah, but we learned so much, and I just love that we were bringing all of those authentic experiences into every little scene, even if it was just like a split second of, we're passing through the schools. Like we put so much love and care into each one of those scenes, and we took so much from that research trip, and just it infused us as we were making every little thing, even the list of who is the top student. And across the list of like down to like, oh, you don't want to be that student who's number 30.
That was me typically.
I think in that similar spirit, one of my favorite Easter eggy type of things is when there's a pan by a group of people with line dancing in the Watertown, which is very popular in many parts of China. And the song that's playing is like one of the most popular line dance songs. And actually that moment, when the movie plays in China, that moment gets the biggest laugh of the whole movie. People are like amazed it's that song.
Yeah.
And also the song in Mandarin is called On the Moon Above. So it's a song like about the moon. And so there's like so many levels of things happening there. And that was definitely, part of our collaboration with Pearl and the artists there. And they really kind of like honed in on that and like cracked themselves up by like saying, oh, what if it was this song? So I really love that moment.
Yeah, for me, I think it's like the building of the rocket when Fei Fei is working on how to build this rocket. All of the formulas for flight and rocketry, we talked to JPL about all of those. They're all actually real. They really work, and so all of that is written there, and it's true. And this is probably not very well hidden, but to have George Méliès's poster of the moon and the rocket hitting him in the eye as it turned out to really be the very beginning of animation was such an appropriate, wonderful way to insert that piece that was kind of a cornerstone that everything had grown from in animation.
That's incredible. And last but not least, Cathy, any particular things that hooked you when you worked on this?
I mean, hooked me everything, but little tidbits that I really love at the end is definitely seeing that Chin has improved as a ping pong player now in the tournament. Even though although he actually he beat the Moon Goddess at a magical game of ping pong. He's not first yet, but he's working his way up there. I always love that. And also seeing the amulet at the end too. Just kind of hidden away so that again it's like you can interpret what actually happened in this family where Fei Fei and Chin went, but it's a grounding piece for us that these spirits in Chang'e are with us, and that's so beautiful. Yeah, I mean, there's tons of Easter eggs, but we can't spoil any like too big things.
Very fair. Absolutely. I appreciate all of the kind of behind the scenes and making of anecdotes that we're able to share today. Just thinking about all the levels that we're incorporating into the film, the reverence for, what animation can do, what the traditional culture provides, and history. It's amazing. Um, I think I have my maybe last two questions. As you know, we have a lot of Googlers here watching the talk, and we're a very global company. And I understand this, film was co-production between DreamWorks here in the States, as you mentioned, Sony up in Vancouver in Canada, and then Pearl Studio based in Beijing and China.
Actually, Netflix, not DreamWorks, Netflix.
Sorry, Netflix. Thank you. Cross-border, so much collaboration. What were kind of the joys and challenges of working with the global team? And question for anyone, of course.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, Gennie, jump in.
We just really embraced it from day one. Like we knew that we had our visual development team in Shanghai, and we were leaning on them with every turn because we wanted to make sure that they had a chance to say, does this feel like the world that you're experiencing now? While we were in LA, we also had our partners in Vancouver, Sony Pictures Imageworks, but then we had artists all over the world, Netherlands, Spain. We had a modeler in Spain, and then Montreal. I mean, we were kind of worldwide time zones. Any time zone you needed, we got it. And Glenn would always call. We had this big monitor in his office, and he'd call that his window into the world, where he just opened his window, and he could be anywhere in the world at any time. And really, that's really what it was, which really I think helped us somewhat prepare for when we had to all go remote we needed to finish the film. As we all went into lockdown for COVID, we finished the film from home. So in terms of establishing our communication, the strength of our communication, that was already long there remotely. But doing it, every day through COVID was it really, I think, bonded us. It was such an experience that we were all going through. So to us, I think the remote world was very much our way of being able to be connected no matter what. So
that's a beautiful contradiction, a remote world and staying connected. Yeah. And for an animated film, generally, the voice actors, they're recording from booths, could be located in different cities to begin with. Cathy and Glenn and, Peilin and Gennie, did you guys get to all be in one place at one time at the beginning and then had to go separate, or did you get another chance to interact again?
Yeah, well, I got to be in the room with all of the creatives when we were first recording the scratch record, when they were still storyboarding. And that day was so magical, as people can attest to. I mean, being in the room with all of the storytellers just helps you as a performer really lock into who these characters are. And then we also got to record when we were first doing the music and like the first pass at dialogue, but afterwards it was all through like Skype, I guess, or something. Peilin lives in New York, and so she and I could be in the room together, but a lot of it was remote, which was strange, but also it prepared me for Zooms, I guess. Yeah, and I mean, it's just no matter what, like I think everyone on this team is so great at what they do. They can convey whatever they need from you. So it was fine. I just do wish that we could be around a lazy Susan together and like enjoy our time. But it will happen one day. So it's okay.
It was very important that we had that time at the beginning to get to know Cathy. And for Cathy, actually, in that scratch time, as we're storyboarding, Cathy is informing us as to who the character is going to be. Because it is, I mean, half the time I call Cathy Fei. It's just so much her in that beginning time. And so when we did have to go remote, I felt like I really, really knew where Cathy would go with ideas or how to encourage her to take it another path, to invent so much of the best stuff, are little things that we didn't know were going to be there that she puts in. And every little lip smack and breath that Cathy had became like a gem for animators to animate. I mean, we know her voice better than she knows her voice now. And so, it really was so important to have that at the beginning to get to know her.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. I think this film has certainly achieved the original aim of the story, and of the screenwriter's wish, of course. That definitely adds another level. It was like a punch in the heart when I heard the backstory. I think we'll go ahead and maybe switch to some audience questions, because I see a few in a chat. So let me see here. All right, our first one is from Benjamin Gao. I hope I got that right. To all, what was your favorite memory from working on the movie? You shared a couple here, but we'd love to hear any more. Favorite memory.
Speaking of food, I loved all the food. We made our way through a lot of serious meals together, and that was always a great time.
I gotta say,
that counts.
Sitting next to Gennie at one dinner is one of my favorite memories, because we were invited by one of the Chinese artists into their home, and we were at a round table, and Gennie had the unfortunate honor of sitting next to the grandmother, who made sure Gennie's plate always was full, way more. You had to eat the equivalent of 10 times what I ate that night.
And Palin would just look at me, and she's like, she felt my pain, and I was like, okay.
Too much love.
There were so many incredible, miraculous things about this movie. I guess one of them, at that dinner, there's a TV set on the wall, and on the wall the TV show is talking about China's mission to Mars to launch its Chang'e, or Jade Rabbit rover, and that's happening at the same time we're having dinner there.
Yeah,
it was really incredible. There's so many amazing stories. One of my favorite was Gennie finding a possible way of us getting our voice, where Mrs. Zhang had been so difficult. Our dream was Sandra Oh, and that just wasn't happening until Gennie's persistence, which describes why she's such an incredible producer. Gennie, can you kind of hit that lightly?
I will edit this down to a bite size story. We had been trying to get Sandra Oh for months, and it just got down to the day where I had to tell Glenn, I'm really sorry, I think we have to move on. I mean, we've tried everything. It just wasn't working out, and schedule wise or whatever, and I think Glenn was like, really? And I was like, yeah, unless like some miracle, but like, Glenn, I think we should really prepare ourselves to move on. And I had told Glenn that, and it had just also happened to be the evening of Audrey's memorial in January 2018, I think it was 2019. And we all went. Peilin was there, and we sat through this beautiful memorial where all these people were sharing just amazing stories about Audrey and how wonderful she was. And one person was a casting director who was mentioning how Sandra Oh had been in several of her films, and how close they were. And I just thought, wow, amazing. And then there was like a little thing in my head of like, I wonder if Sandra is here. But I was like also very emotional, had been crying for 3 hours. I happened to text another colleague of ours who was running late, and I was like, "Hey, did you make it?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, I actually am sitting in the back, and oh, by the way, I was sitting next to Sandra." And I was like, "Bro, are you serious?" I said, "Can you grab her? Is she still here? Like, can I grab her?" And I just jumped out of my seat. I ran down the aisle, busted through these double doors, and I was like, "Where is she?" Like, I think she just left. She might be in the parking lot if you run. And I was like, ah! And I was like running through the crowd, and I literally into the street, like stopping cars, trying to get to the parking lot. And I was like going up to every car, like, "Are you Sandra? Are you Sandra?" Like, such a crazy person. And I found Sandra. I saw her, and I went up to her window, and I said, "Sandra, I am Gennie Rim, the producer of Over the Moon." And she just looked at me, and she like rolled down the window like this. I know who you are. But then she got out of her car, and and it was such an emotional night. I mean, we both just really held hands, and we were shaking, just looking at each other, going, I said, "You have to be in this film." I know that Audrey would want you to be in this film, and it is, her last film, and we very much would love to have you. And she's like, "Yes, yes, yes, I'm going to make it happen. We're going to figure this out. Of course, I will be in this movie." And that's what happens.
That's an amazing story and answer.
Yeah, it was amazing. And I think 20 minutes later, I got a call from her agent saying, like, "I don't know what happened, but she's in."
Amazing. Thank you. That was a perfect answer for a favorite memory. We're happy to get to the next question. Let's see if we can get through more of these. Jerry Saw says, "Honored to meet you all. To Glenn, how is it different to direct a feature-length film versus shorts? How is partnering with Netflix in terms of the creative control?"
Well, for me, I've spent my career as an animator, which means living in the skin of the characters you animate, from the Beast or Mermaid or Tarzan or whatever the character is, you become them. And so that's the only way I knew how to approach directing, was by really believing and living in the skin of the character. And Fei was the character that I was just like drawn to like a magnet. Meeting Cathy was like that. I just knew this is our Fei. I mean, just it was instantaneous. So it was very easy for me to live in the skin of Fei. Everything in this movie, I pictured that the way we're telling the story is through Fei's eyes. It's like if you go on the ride like Pirates of the Caribbean, you hop in the little boat and it takes you along, and Fei was our boat. And that was our experience through the whole thing. So I approached it very much from inside the skin of Fei. And what was the second part of your question?
I believe it was, how was partnering with Netflix in terms of creative control?
Yeah, well, at the beginning, Melissa Cobb, who was the head of Netflix animation, and Peilin invited us to do this movie. And they both talked about incredible freedom that we would have, creative freedom. And I've heard that before. And you think, okay, well, we'll see. I mean, you can't say no to this movie, but we'll just see what that really means. But that was really a true statement. I mean, Gennie, you and I feel like we had incredible freedom to pursue the things that really spoke to us. And we're always given time to weigh any notes. You still got suggestions, which was really wonderful. Peilin constantly would suggest ideas and then not force it. And there was one particular idea that she kept talking about, and I kept like, yeah, I don't know. And Gennie always kind of made sure that I had lots of time around me to think about it. It was a moment at the end that we needed some extra moment of hijinks in there, and I felt like I don't really think we need it. And then this speaks to the fact that animated movies are really made, though they're made in like 3 years, they're made in 5 minutes.
Wow.
We were in editing, and I think Gennie said, look, we got like 15 minutes and we have to send this out because now it's it, that we got to stop any story work. And suddenly it became clear, Peilin's right. Put this in there, and so we immediately are drawing as fast as I can. I'm taking with my iPhone pictures of little sketches and emailing them. We're cutting them in, and we're running downstairs and recording the dialogue, just scratch dialogue, and it's in the movie that way. And it was just such a fantastic way of filmmaking, because of the freedom that you were given. If, like Peilin, if you had said, no, you've got to do this earlier, I would never have come up with that way. It was being patient and waiting for the right timing. It's really a great way to work with people too, I think. Yeah.
Good to hear. Thank you for that behind the scenes for us. I think we have maybe time for 1 or 2 more questions, so I'll move on to the next one if you don't mind. From Sophia, thank you all for coming. What was your favorite character in the film and why? I think we've heard a bit, but would love to hear everyone's thoughts further.
Fei Fei.
For what it's worth, I was very, I thought that the, introduction of the mixed family kind of plot line was super inspired, right? As I think I've read in other interviews, it's not often talked about in especially traditional, Chinese film or media. And certainly not in folktales. So that I think, Chin, I loved Chin so much. He definitely got on my nerves at the beginning, as he did on Fei Fei's nerves, but that's my hat in. We'll give Chin a thumbs up.
I would, not because I voiced her, but but Fei Fei for sure. Because I mean, she's just everything that I wanted to see when I was growing up on screen. And to have this really brilliant, creative, passionate, stubborn, and just absolutely loving, so deeply loving picture of this young Chinese girl. I mean, it's been a really big dream of mine to be able to share that with the world, and the fact that we had such a large platform, that this could actually reach kids all over the world, and hopefully they could see themselves in Fei Fei, or or if they don't know anything about a young Chinese girl, maybe they could get curious about her culture and enjoy it in the way that she does, and the way that she loves her family and her home and this goddess, and just be able to share that with her now. It's just a huge honor. And so I can't help but feel proud that she's in the world now for all of these AAPI kids.
I think I see a couple of comments that definitely attest to that fact. There's a fun fact from Jessica that says she had to make a cardboard rabbit rocket because her daughter is obsessed with Over the Moon. She keeps wanting to go to the moon to meet Chang'e. So I just wanted to really call that one out because it was a perfect tie-in to your answer. We have just about a minute left, so I might kind of wrap up the conversation. Thank you, everyone, for being our guest today virtually at Google. Thanks to all the Googlers out there who are watching and the wider audience when this is out on YouTube. We hope you check out Over the Moon, get excited for its Golden Globe nomination, and just share the film with your friends and family. And I will certainly have to go back and look for some of those details that were mentioned on this chat. So thank you, everybody, for being our guest today for an hour and sharing that time with us. I can't, I got to nerd out so much on this conversation, and I think everyone else did too. So thank you so much. And we will hopefully see your work again in the future as well, outside of Over the Moon.
Jennifer, thank you so much. It was a real delight just to be able to share our thoughts about this movie. Love each other and this film, and it's just great to be able to share it with Google.
Yeah.
Big fans of Google.
We certainly appreciate
Bay
that.
Area.